Hello, and welcome again to the Spiritual Strongmen of the Kingdom of Darkness, Part 2. This is Pastor Deborah. Let's begin. Who are they, and what do they do? I will begin in an easy form, alphabetic. The Spiritual Strongman of Antichrist. Spiritual strongmen that seek to reside and rule the soul and the spiritual hearts of every human, to bind them, to blind them to the truth of agape love, light, joy, and peace, and the kingdom of heaven, and its words of spirit and light that was sent into the dark world to bring its light of truth and wisdom back into it to provide its kingdom of government from the kingdom of heaven and into the spiritual heart of a human spirit. Spiritually hidden strongmen that seek to control the very thoughts and concepts of a soul and to oppress and enslave the spiritual creation called humanity. And from this high tower of control and defense, these Antichrist strongmen will torment, vex, and abuse the land and its creatures, and seek to control and enslave nations through government, laws and rules, courts, and by injustice through the corrupt and perverse thoughts and souls of humanity, void of light and truth of Christ, the anointed word of agape love, joy, and peace. The spirit of Antichrist brings words, concepts, ideas, thoughts of reason and humanism, trains and shapes and conforms precious souls and spirits to accept lies, deceptions, error of its enemy, the kingdom of heaven and its king, the great creator and most high God, who cast these spiritual ones out of the kingdom of heaven and out to the darkness and eventually into the eternal lake of torment and fire. Antichrist strongmen, spiritual beings that fight against the truth of agape love, its ways of love, joy, and peace, and seeks to bring war and violence to the system called a human and between human and other humans. Antichrist strongmen are against and enemies to the powerful anointing of agape love, the freedom it offers, the deliverance it can provide to slaves, to those being oppressed by lies and deceptions, and against the healing that the anointing of this King of agape love and its kingdom of heaven have. The second strong man that I, Pastor Deborah, want to talk to you about is the spiritual strongmen of bondage. Bondage of what? Bondage to what? Or to who? Bondage is defined as anything that binds or restrains something, holding or tying up with chains and fetters, holding by fear of death, holding by the fear of punishment, holding in captivity by lies and deceptions, taking into captivity and slavery by ignorance and bewitchment, enslaving others for their own personal satisfaction and enjoyment, not allowing something or someone to be free to lead or to decide for oneself. What do these powerful, spiritually hidden strongmen want to have in bondage? What is the chains of bondage that they use? How do they spiritually get someone or something in a state of bondage? Such good questions to be asking and to be seeking the answers. So let's begin. These spiritual strongmen of bondage work to spiritually connect, bond, tie with unseen bonds of bondage the entire system of nations, land and resources, and all the three parts of a human, a physical body, soul, and its forever person. The spiritual person to them and their kingdom of darkness as slaves and captives to do their bidding and to accomplish the kingdom of darkness's goals and purposes. In other words, not free. No free will, no freedom to choose, held hostage by other things, held captive by even their own desires of lust and pleasure, enslaved by the fear of death and pain, bound by chains of soul ties to be loved and valued, held in slavery for others, just products to be sold and used, abused and thrown away, locked in darkness to all that is agape love and its light, held in bondage to hopelessness, fear of torment, memories of trauma, and by fragmentation, living yet dead, dead yet alive, never free, never satisfied, never loved, never living in the light of truth. These spiritual strongmen are the ties that bind anything and everything to the lies, deception, fears, and hate, the very king of the kingdom of darkness, Satan himself. These spiritual strongmen provide the chains, the bonds of slavery, the fetters of iron, the doors of cells, the fear of death, the deep levels of bondage, and are powerful in all three realms: the natural world, the world of the soul, the mind, unseen world of the spiritual. To these spiritual strongmen of the kingdom of darkness, freedom is denied. Freedom is hated. Freedom is not allowed in any form or in any area of the three-part system. Freedom is an enemy of them and their kingdom of control, their matrix of bondage. So through the matrix of the control by the strong men of bondage, they are able to produce in the three-part system of a human, in the land of nations, in the governments of nations, in the resources of nations, in the world of nature and its living creatures, bondage, slavery, enslavement, captivity, torment, vexation and sorrow, fear of death, lust for pleasure, lust for peace and prosperity, desires to feel good, desires to feel no pain or discomfort, a bending down to serving another thing or person, loss of freedom of will, a broken spirit, hopelessness, sorrow of heart, pains of mourning, clothes of shame and dishonor, loss of identity and purpose, a self-murder by suicide of death, by addictions to anything of the flesh, a self-murder by suicide, death by addictions to anything of the flesh and soul and spirit. Spiritual strongmen of bondage, hidden away, unseen, working in concert with other strongmen to totally enslave all creation in darkness and servitude to Satan, the king of darkness. And this ends part 2 of the strongmen of nations, land, and people. Continue to keep listening. The next group will begin with the spiritual strongmen of deafness and dumbness, 2 that work as one. Enjoy and come again. Love always and forever. Pastor